It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Friday, November 22nd, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Until the End with Daniel Baker, the Wednesday Message Word Study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, it is a wonderful Friday. It is the weekend. I am so happy and excited that the weekend is already here. For some reason, not a lot, it hasn't really been a super busy week as in me physically going out and doing stuff, but it has been pretty crazy. Just, there's a lot of meetings on Zoom. A lot of thinking, and the thing that's driving me crazy, not crazy, but it's driving me the most mad is buying furniture. Like, this is something that is so ridiculous in my head. Like, it's so simple in my head, but when it actually comes down to getting the things, I've gotten everything I need except for my desk. And I'm going to tell you this right now. The desk seems to be the hardest one. And it's because I need to buy a desk, and then I also need to, the chair has to match. Now, I'm not talking about color. Like, color is one thing, and there's another friend of mine that's like saying, there's certain things that match and certain things that don't, right? But I didn't know how important the height of the desk and the size of the chair is. Like, I didn't know. I had no idea. So, I would choose a chair and a desk, and then it just doesn't fit because they say that the desk and the seat height should be around 25 to 28 centimeters apart for there to be enough clearance, right? For there to be enough, room for you to, sit there comfortably. You could even cross your legs or whatever it is, right? So it's supposed to be about 28 centimeters. And every time I find a nice desk, it's like a low desk, and then the seat is too high, and it's just like, I just decided to just push it off. Yeah, that's the one thing driving me mad. It's the only thing that I have left. Is a desk and a chair, and I'm thinking that the best thing for me to do, I think this is the best thing for me to do, is just kind of go, mosey on down to a furniture store, and in that furniture store, sit down, check it out, and see what I like, and then, just get the thing that I actually need. That's what I think. That's what I think I should do, right? So, yes, it's been driving me nuts. Right now, it's really late at night, because I've been sitting this whole time trying to find a stupid desk and chair, right? And, it's something where, because I have a budget, right? So that's one of the best parts is when I have a budget, I know exactly what my price range is, but I just didn't realize there's just so many things in the price. Maybe I'm complicating things, but I don't know. I'm going to ask you guys. If you guys moved into your own place and then you had to get some furniture and stuff, would you maybe it's a guy thing where I'm too simple, but then it's more complicated than I thought. But how much time would you spend that much time on furniture? I don't know. I have no idea. Either way, it's just, that's just kind of the things on my mind at the moment. But yeah. Guys, don't forget we have Q&A Thursday every single week, so get those questions ready. We get some great questions each and every week, and the good thing is they're real questions that people are really thinking about and stuff, so I'm very grateful and thankful that you guys are joining and sending your questions too. And remember, if you haven't yet, for today's video, this Friday video for November, is it 22nd already? It is the 22nd, right? November 22nd, what I want you guys to do is click that like button for today's video, just as communication to me that you're enjoying the podcast, right? That would be something that I would really appreciate, is if you don't even need to comment. right? You don't have to comment, but if you just like, it's anonymous, and it just lets me know that, oh, I'm enjoying this podcast kind of thing. So that is something that I really hope that you guys will be able to, we can have that time of communication. Either way, okay? So a bunch of different things going on for our IMD for the entire the mission center that I work at. Like today is huge cleaning day for us, so I think I'm going to be outside from like 10 a.m. doing the, what do you call it? You know, the weed whacker, and you're like trimming all the weeds and stuff. So I'll be doing that. All the guys do that, but yeah, that's gonna be my that's what my day's gonna be like right now. It's a little bit late, but I am drinking a coffee at midnight. As weird as that sounds, but it's a decaf coffee, which means there's still caffeine in it, but it's like a very, very small amount. But it's just nice to have that cup of Joe with me while I'm. It's like the coffee is my my partner. My coffee is staying awake with me for me to do my podcast. Right. So thank you guys. It's been an amazing week. I'm so thankful for everyone joining us every single weekday. And I hope that you'll continue to support each and every day. And for those of you guys out there who are on Patreon, big shout out to the people on Patreon supporting this channel financially. And I'm really, really hoping for the future also when it comes to the Rebel Pastor. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Sunsi's response is going to be to the top 9 creators and stuff. Oh, cool part is people are now in the foreign countries, they're sending me their what do you call it? Their YouTube channels, their Instagrams, like the ones that they're actually the ones that they're working on right now. And I find it pretty cool to see how everyone is working hard on these things too. Yes, guys, I do need to tell you, you're not just listening to any YouTuber. You're listening to the top subscribed YouTuber in Providence right now. It just sounds so stupid, but it's just, at a certain, actually when I was really, really thinking about it, they actually said, like, they were kind of shocked that, like the people in charge had no idea that I've been doing this for like over 3 years. It's supposed to be 4 years, but remember I took all of 2023 off, right? MSD has been around for 4.5 years, but the Rebel Pastor, it's been 37 weeks since we started the Rebel Pastor, which means we rebranded the channel. So that's roughly about what, 7-8 months, right? So that's kind of cool that we know that we restarted that. And but they said that they actually have these meetings where you bring the top 8 creators in Korea together and they discuss together, talk about content, what they can say, what they can do, and stuff like that too. And what I realized, okay. And this is the thing that's really shocking for them is because I have like 350 videos I made for the Rebel Pastor, and the one thing that they're kind of not shocked, but they're really impressed by is like, how do you come up with so much content? And I'm going to tell you right now, content comes because of MSD. That's basically it. MSD is where we're going over the word. MSD is when we're getting Q&As. MSD is when we're talking about like different issues that are happening around the world. And for me, I think that's kind of a cool, that's one of those things that's kind of kept my my lecturing chops sharp. It's just I've never stopped speaking, and I've never stopped trying to come up with content. And what I realized the most is that most of the content that we kind of that we do here on MSD is just like what happens in our daily life, right? Yeah, Sunday message, that's a daily life thing. We get it every single week. Wednesday message, it's every single week, right? And I think that people are able to make a lot more content than they really realize. They can make this type of content all the time. They just don't realize that they can do it. So I think it's something that we have to recognize for ourselves that, yeah, we can make great content. And if you really just kind of look into your life, you'll be able to find, and of course, on top of it, we have so much word, not just Sunday messages, Wednesday, Fridays, pre-dawns, but even the 30 lessons are chock full of so much content, right? Because like someone might think that, oh, Sunstop is so, Sunstop only basically has one lesson, but there's tons of lessons in there because it talks about perception. Tons of lessons of like, what is Joshua thinking? What's he going through while he's about to fight the five tribes come together to come attack him, right? There's a lot of different things that you could take out of it. And the 30 lessons have so much stuff that I do think we could just sit there and make tons of content as much as we can, right? So, I forgot to do the congratulations for the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. We're well over 6,000 subs, so big congrats to us. 6,000 subs. We're at 6,030 from the last I checked, so that's kind of a cool thing. And we are just pushing through. And I think I was talking to the YouTube team just the other day, and I think the thing that's super exciting is knowing that, Sunsteve's going to send some type of content for us to Sunsteve wants to talk about this, right? And my feeling is I don't know. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I do feel Sunsteve's going to give us something a little bit, he's going to give us probably like a really, really big topic that we have to dive deep into. Like that's what I feel. We're going to dive deep into these topics, and I would say one of the biggest benefits of of going into topics that has to do with the word or the 30 lessons is basically if the thing the experience that I have is basically lecturing and preaching. And I think that those are the two things that really, really help. And I hope that it's something that you guys can gain a lot from too. I'm going to talk about the content Sunsteve gives me on this podcast too, right? I'm going to sneak it in. I'm really to sneak it in so that everyone can have something to use while they are. Everyone has something they can use so they can put it onto their channels and their content too. So that is something that I hope that we can really, really work on also. So this week's Sunday message title, 2 of them. When sharing the word, you should deliver it with wise planning and testify too. Awesome, right? And do not just pray, but take action. Okay, so that's something that I thought was quite cool and stuff like that also. So it is Friday, and I wanted to start off with something that I saw this on a YouTube short. And those of you guys who don't know, recently I I was sharing something that I saw on Instagram, and it was Denzel Washington talking about seeing the face of God. Okay, now it's not literal, but he saw the face the same way that we see it, like in natural revelation. So he said he was on a boat, and he asked God, he's like, God, like Moses saw your face, Jesus, people saw Jesus, like, I want to see your face. And he heard a voice said, look to your left. And he looked out into the ocean, and then he just took a picture right away. And it was a cloud revelation, and it was God's face in the clouds. And he was like kind of showing a reporter that he's, this is the testimony he was giving, right? And those guys who don't know, Denzel Washington is super faithful, right? Super faithful. He's someone that very, very classy, high morals, loves God, loves Jesus. Whenever he goes to, he does the graduation speeches. There's always a guest speaker. He's the one that always talks about putting God first, right? So he said something that is this really small short of Denzel Washington, and I thought it was really, really cool what he said, and it made me think really deeply. He said, if you dress well, people think you're showing off. If you dress simple, people think you're poor. If you speak your mind, people say you're rude. And if you stay quiet and say nothing, people think you're a coward. When you're successful, people say you're arrogant. When you're struggling, they say you're lazy. No matter what you do, people always have something to say. So ignore people and their opinions, and what matters is if your Creator is pleased with you. That's the thing it's a really powerful thing. if people don't like you, if people say things against you, they will always find something bad to say, always, right? If people, if you think about it, if you look hard enough or look at other people and you don't like them that much, you will always find a reason not to like them, right? You're always going to find it. And it's something that I was really, what Denzel said was something that really made me think a little bit more deeply. It really did, right? And like, for me, I talk to you that I do keep in contact with members that have left. I do, right? It's like, I can't sit there and say that, oh, now that you left, our friendship means nothing. No, it's totally not like that either for myself. But I also know is I'm not affected by others who leave, and they'll say their bad things. I'll defend Sunstein, and I understand that they believe what they want to do. I'm not going to agree with it, right? And I do know sometimes when I talk to people, some people will try to rile me up and say some terrible things. And I'll just sit there and like, all right, like this, I just know that they're trying to do that at that point, right? So, when I talk to people who left, a lot of times I wonder, like, how they're really doing, like, deep in their heart, right? I wonder how they're really doing. And there's one thing that I'm certain of. The one thing I am absolutely certain of is that the people who left Providence feel relieved for not being in Providence, and they feel like free, like freedom, right? And the reason why I agree with this is because we all know how hard it is to be in this history. It's hard, right? All the things we struggle with, all the things that we strive to become and do, making ourselves each and every week, each and every day, it's not easy. It's really, really difficult, right? And the way Sunstein put it is this. Providence is the luxury religion. Now, what does that mean? Doesn't mean it's luxurious. It just basically means that luxurious things cost more. And if it costs more, it means that it costs more money. And if it costs more money, it means you put more time in to buy those things, right? Something that's cheap, you can get it all the time, right? And that's why when you go to a lower and lower level religion, what happens? It's easier and easier to do because it's not that expensive. But in Providence, we realize how hard it is, right? If you want a nice car, it costs more money. More money means more hours and more struggling you have to do to get it. And for us, things get really tough sometimes because we're not only just trying to live in this history, make the history of God, make the foundation for the 1,000 years. On top of it, we have difficulties already happening in our own life on top of that, right? And that's why, I understand why people who left feel more freedom. They feel more relieved. They say that, oh, I'm so happy that we left and I'm not waking up tired and this and that. And I understand because you're basically taking away a ton of burden and a ton of responsibility from being in this history. Right? Being in the history of God. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh, that's like, it's true because you're not going to be struggling and striving that hard outside of this history. You're not going to be waking up at like 5 a.m. You're not going to be, going to church 8 times a week, whatever it is, right? But it made me think about what life was like 2,000 years ago. Like imagine 2,000 years ago when the Roman Empire was hunting down Christians to kill them. Can you imagine being on the run and hiding at all times, scared for your life, scared for your family, praying that no one catches you? And then someone gets caught and you see your good friends from church getting caught by the Romans and then hearing about them dying in the Colosseum. Can you imagine how much stress that is? Can you imagine how much you'd want to get away from it? And then imagine one day you say to yourself, forget this. I can't handle this anymore. I'm not going to be a Christian anymore. Then you're no longer scared for your life. You don't have to hide. You don't have to think about being caught. You can freely do business and live a life that is normal with everyone else. You're free. You're free from burden, right? And when I looked at that, I was like, yeah, it's true. It's not is not any different than what's happening today, what people are experiencing when they leave today too. Seeing people leave and looking at them the way they say they feel so free and life is not so hard, I believe it. I really do. It doesn't change my heart or my mind, but I believe it because it is easier. And it made me contemplate, right? It made me contemplate, right? Because if one of the things we talk about is, I'm not tired anymore and my life is not so hard, I feel more free. The question I give is that the point? Like life itself, is that the point to not live a hard life? Is that the point to not suffer? Is that the point to not struggle? And it made me think about when we first came to this history, what was the original reason we started to run in this history? Did we come into this history with that mindset that, man, if I come to Providence, I'm going to be more comfortable and I'm going to suffer less? Was that the reason? Was that something that we were having expectations for? Or did we see something bigger? Did we see a vision? Did we see something that was like so important value, but that it's going to be worth everything that we go through? Did we see something that was worth suffering for? And I think the way Sensei put it is the right way. The right way Sensei put it is, it's when tribulations, difficulties, and hardships come, this is when people lose sight of why we're here in the first place. And I can tell you guys, all of us went through it last year, and we can see how easy it was to lose sight when tribulations came, especially the huge tribulation we faced last year. When the tribulations come and life becomes really difficult and hard, this is where we either become more physical. Yes, some people become more spiritual. It's that much harder. But in most cases, we'll see that people become more physical. And when you become more physical than spiritual, what happens? When you become more physical, it's easy to lose sight of the big picture, of the spiritual picture, right? When you become physical, you stop seeing God. When you become physical, you stop feeling God. When you become physical, you stop praying. When you become physical, you stop listening to the word well. When you sleep in more, like you become way more physical. And when you become physical, you lose sight of what the original intention actually was. Like this is one of the things Sensei talked about as an example in the past is people don't get divorced because like they fell out of love. People get divorced because they lost sight of what the original purpose was, right? So it's like, oh, we love each other and you get married and then all of a sudden you go through financial difficulties, then you go through this difficulty, the business is not doing well, right? You're having problems with your in-laws, like all these problems come up and what happens is you start to look at the wrong things, right? You start to think you married the wrong person. Why? Because the in-laws are bad, right? That's the reason, right? You start looking at, financially, how are we going to do here? We don't have enough money to pay rent. Maybe, I married the wrong person. But you never married the person to pay rent. And you never married the person to have perfect in-laws. You married the person because you truly loved that person, right? That was the original point. That's the original reason that all these things happen, right? So when we look at this, we have to think to ourselves as like, when we become physical, we have to realize and recognize we're going to lose the point. Like one of the things I recognized from last year is a lot of times people can easily go with the flow when something bad happens, right? Oh my gosh, you hear about what KJS said about Sunsteam? And everyone flips out emotionally, and then it's very, very easy to make the wrong decision. Very easy, right? Because emotional thing is not reasonable. It's not rational. Emotional things are not thinking about the spiritual, not thinking about what God thinks, not thinking about, hey, I got to pray to God about this. What we realize is that when the difficulties come, our eyes are taken off of what our original intention was, right? And I think that's something that we have to kind of recognize for ourselves and recognize even when someone leaves Providence, when they say life is easier, you better believe it. Because the way we live in Providence, it's not like it's an easy lifestyle. It's not like it's so easy to live the life of providence, going to pre-dawn every day, going to the services, trying to live by the proper life, repenting of our sins, and trying to live the good moral life, right? Becoming good people. See, when I look at the way the world works, because, I listen to, because I'm a podcaster and a YouTuber, I also listen to a lot of podcasters. But there's these interesting conversations that come out that make me think more about why God's history is so necessary. And they were talking about, I'm not sure if you guys have heard about this, but like Kamala Harris, her campaign spent like $1 billion in like 90 days. I don't know how that's even possible. They spent $1 billion in 90 days, right? And they were talking about like how Kamala Harris, their campaign, like paid these like celebrities money to come to the events and stuff. And the question came up is like, why would they do that for money when they're so rich? Like, and if you really, really believed in Harris, you'd do it for free, just like everyone else did it for free when, all the celebrities that followed Donald Trump. You know what I mean? And the thing came up is this. They said, when you don't have money, you're willing to bend your morals to make more money because you need it that badly. But when you have money, you're able to live by your morals, shun money to live the right way, right? And when I listened to that, I was like, it's true though, because when you don't have money, you'll do anything to get money, right? Even if it goes against your morals. But once you have money, this is when you're really able to live the way that you truly want to. And I realized like, oh, that's kind of what life is like without God. There's no true moral authority in your life. There's no real reason that you have to be that good and suffer so much. But when you see the difference between people who have faith compared to those who don't, you got to think about it. There is no reason to truly be that good until you can be, and everyone's okay with it, which is so different from what we go through as those who believe in God. Those who know, those that understand, those that know that this life is just temporary and it leads to something better in the future. We know it's about living the right life regardless of what you have. And we are not defined by our money. The money's not the reason why we become good or bad or we live by our morals or not. Here in this province history, we do it regardless to have integrity in our life, right? The integrity to say that, hey, even when I was poor, I didn't break the law. I didn't go against my morals in my life. It's really like one thing that I saw is I look at some of the celebrities that everyone, like a lot of the people in, say, in America look up to. Like, there's Joe Rogan, Elon Musk and stuff. But even like a Joe Rogan's life, it's not like he's a saint. He drinks, he smokes cigars, smokes weed, does drugs every once in a while. But he's actually considered one of the good guys and someone to look up to. Right? Now, I'm not going to say he's a bad guy, but I'm definitely going to say that he's not the person you should be looking up to, right? Elon Musk, genius, not religious, but everyone looks up to him, right? Smart, rich, rebel to the establishment. But what I realized is it's so interesting that you can see how far society has gone by looking at the heroes that they look up to. Who are the heroes of society? Who are these people? And none of these people are really like these huge God-fearing people. But when we believe in God, it's much different. Who are our heroes? They're spiritual people. People who run for this history. People who make miracles happen. People who are acknowledged by the Lord. people who have great merits, whether it's evangelism, preaching, tithing, taking care of, it's these people. This is what we look at as greatness, right? But I think you can get kind of a sense of what people are like in the world by looking at who they look up to. And it really makes me wonder to myself is, when will there come the time when everyone looks at Sunsim as their hero, as the GOAT, the greatest of all time? And of course, it's going to require that Providence becomes much bigger in the world, right? Of course, it's going to require that. Of course it does. But I think we need to realize once again how much we need to shine the light of God to people, right? Showing people, because people recognize what true goodness is. They'll see the difference between a person who's been good all their life, no matter what, compared to someone who was kind of good only when they became rich. It's a very, very different person, right? It's almost the same as saying someone who's very loyal and good to you only later when you get rich. Only later when you're actually someone that's popular. But when you weren't, they weren't as loyal. Like that, when you look at that, it's like, that doesn't really make any sense. That's why that integrity plays such a huge role. And we need to have that type of integrity as people of God. Now, the one thing I will tell you is this. People in Providence, we repent and we do some bad things, right? But if you look at it from the worldly perspective, people in the world will say things like, what? Like, that's the worst thing you've done? And they'll look at that as such a petty thing. Like, when I tell people, I'm 46 years old. There's a movie about me, right? Because, I'm 46 years old. The last time I had a girlfriend was when I was 11 years old. And you know what type of girlfriend that is? That's like, you're just excited to hold hands. And you're just giggling all the time. She's my girlfriend. He's my boyfriend. It's like, that's it, right? And when people hear that, they'll be like, what the hell is wrong with you? Or they'll say something like, how the heck did you do that? It's very different. Like what we're like in Providence compared to the world, even though, when we hear the word sometimes, we're like, oh my gosh, my sin is too big. What happened? Why is my sin like this? Yeah, we look at that as such a big thing because we're trying to make ourselves and perfect ourselves. But from the world's point of view, they're going to look at you and say, you're struggling over that? You think you're bad because of that? And we just got to continue to be the light of the world. We're going to make mistakes, but we're not going to make the bad ones. We're going to do things that make people upset, whatever it is, but we're not going to do the really, really bad things, right? Because there's a difference. There's a line. There's a line between killing someone and just saying something bad about someone. There's a line. There's a huge line between that, right? There's a line between arguing and misunderstanding your brothers and sisters and getting into a physical fist fight with them. There's a line, right? And we have to be those that keep that line, right? We do have to keep that line. So I hope it's something that we can really understand more and more, and that we just need to realize, hey, it's really bad right now, but there's going to come a time where Providence is going to take over the world, right? Take over the world means it's going to be something that many people are actually believing in, even presidents, right? Even congressmen, senators, like all these people, they're going to be in this history. And we are the ones setting the foundation. And I hope that all of us too, we will not be discouraged, right? That the thing I shared at the beginning with Denzel Washington. Yeah, if they don't like you, they're gonna find they'll always have something to say against you, no matter what. What matters is is God pleased by you? What matters is the Lord pleased by you? And that becomes the number one thing, right? So I hope it's something that we can really be understanding about ourselves, about others, even those who left, right? Yeah. I don't disagree. When they leave, they feel more free. Of course they do. When they leave, they're not as tired. Of course they're not. Like, of course they are not as tired, right? But ultimately, the end is, what are we living for and what are we working towards, right? Is it worth it or not, what we're doing now? So I hope that we'll not forget those things, especially when things get difficult, and we'll really have that mentality and mindset to do even better for this history as we move to the end of 2024 and begin 2025. Okay? So we do have the Wednesday Message Word Study today, but before we get into it, let's move into the first music break of the day. All right, so let's get into today's Wednesday Message Word Study. And what a powerful message. The title is, It is to First Polish Your Heart and Mind. It's to first polish your heart and mind, right? So great message we had on Wednesday. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It came from Matthew 13, verse 3 through 9. And it's Jesus telling the parable of the farmer that went to sow his seed. And of course, some seeds fell along the path. Birds came and ate it up. Some went to rocky places. Some was too shallow. Others fell among thorns. And some had good soil that it produced like 30, 60, or 100 times of what was actually sown, right? So great message. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let's get into the Wednesday message, right? One of the first ones I liked that Sasim said is, it's about polishing the road and to polish the heart. And then what Sasim started to say was, find all the scriptures in the Bible that mention the heart and act on them, right? So, what would be the most famous one that we all know? I think it's in Proverbs chapter 4. Is it 23 or 24 that says, guard your heart for it's the wellspring of life, right? And there's another one in Matthew that says, where your heart is, that's where your treasure will be also. Like, there's a bunch of verses in there about how important the heart is. So I hope that that's something that we can also go into too, right? Like, those are two verses that come to my mind right off the top. And then, of course, Sasim sent some signatures to us also. People live according to their hearts and control and rule over your heart and mind. So I like the message because the reason why we need to control our hearts is because everything follows your heart, right? The reason your body does nothing is because your heart's not thinking. Your heart's not doesn't move, right? And the reason why this is so important is because a lot of times it's not that we think the wrong things. The message says the heart and mind too, if it remains idle. Which means that one of the things that we do make a mistake in our life too is not just thinking the wrong things, but what the message says is sometimes you are idle in your heart, which means you're just not doing anything. So if your heart is idle, guys are probably better at doing this where we can sit there, stare into nothing, and think nothing about it also, right? So that's one of the things I look at. It's like, yeah, that's very, very true. That can happen. We can be idle. And the problem is when your heart and mind is idle, this is when your body is idle too, right? What we do remains, and what we don't do, it remains where? In nothingness. Means nothing actually happens. There's nothing to show for it, right? Because, when you look back, look at like one of the things I look at MSD is because we have a library of over 1,200 episodes, I can really look back and say, this is what was done. Look at my YouTube channel. This is what was done. And when you look at what you've done, the message says you recognize what the heart behind it was. You know the heart through the actions. Sometimes people will use tricks and schemes and act falsely in order to deceive. But even when they do this, you can recognize their heart through their actions. So you always have to look at their actions, right? That's a very, very easy verse that comes out. I think it's Matthew 7:15-20 that says you could tell a tree by its fruit, right? You could tell a person by the actions that they take. And you can have this part here I think is very, very important for us too, is even if you have a good heart, if you only have a good heart and you do nothing about it, the only thing that benefits is your heart. Oh, I have a good heart, but that's the only thing that benefits from it because you did nothing with it. But nothing real is gained because you didn't do anything. So basically, if you do nothing all day but just think good thoughts, it actually ends as nothing because your heart didn't take action with your body, right? It's the same with prayer. You can pray by confessing your heart with your lips, and it'll get delivered to God, right? And that's something that's like, that's an action we need to do is like, what somebody said is if you meditate but do nothing, it just ends as meditation. But if you pray, right, it gets delivered to God and he will take action. And that what happens there, it becomes reality. So there are some things where it's between you and God, where you're asking God for things that you couldn't normally do by yourself, right? That's why the message always says, small things are for us to do, the big things are for God to do. But just having a good heart doesn't mean you gain something. You have to actually use the good heart, right? So, it's something that we have to really... It's interesting because there's two things that come out here. Number one is this. So even with a good heart, if you don't take action, nothing comes out of it. But then on the flip side, what does it mean? It means that, but what the message also says is your body takes action according to your heart, right? So it's like that. It's kind of like, okay, so if you think something good, but you don't do anything about it, that's not good. Okay, we understand that, right? But then the message also says that, when you take action, you can see the heart of a person. So without the heart, yes, you can just have the heart but have no actions, but the actions don't happen without the heart, right? There's got to be some intent. And the interesting thing is, if our hearts are wicked, right? We have to get rid of those wicked and unrighteous thoughts immediately. Because it can come into fruition, right? It can come into action. And we kind of see it all the time is whenever we sin, it starts in our heart first and then slowly develops and then comes out into our bodies, right? So I hope it's something that we'll recognize and realize about our heart, the connection between our hearts and our bodies, and realizing that, yeah, the heart can be alone and only think good thoughts by itself, but without the heart, there is no action, right? This other part I thought was really cool was when it talked about it says, even when it comes to things you verified, so you know it's true, it's absolutely correct, but you'll still doubt and be anxious from time to time. It's interesting, right? Even though you've you verified, you know it's correct. And this is because our hearts waver and change according to our psychological state, right? The heart is like water. So even a small shock will make it undulate. And that's how it's affected, right? People, we have to understand is because our hearts are like that, it can even make us doubt and be anxious of what is true. Now, that's a really interesting thing because I'm sure we've all experienced that before. And I'm sure a lot of people experienced that last year in 2023. That even though we know, even though we came to this history, we listened to the words and we realize absolutely, but from time to time we doubt and we're anxious because our hearts waver and change according to our psychological state, right? That I found was really interesting. And I think that's one way Son Steve is telling us is that he really, really understands what we're going through, right? So we're basically our success and failure is all depending upon our hearts. And because of our hearts that, kind of go up and down and up and down, this is why accidents happen. This is why we make mistakes. This is why we go through suffering. This is why we gain, and this is why we lose, right? I also like this one part here. It says, the one thing that you must make it, the one thing is that you must make it match God's heart. That's one of the things we have to do. We have to make ourselves match God's heart. And how do we do that? By learning and taking up God's heart through the person who is sent. So what's the first thing we need to do? What's the most important thing? Is making our hearts. That's the first and most important thing we need to do. And as we grow, like even for when I see myself grow over the last 20, 30 years in Providence, our hearts change as we grow. We realize more. We understand ourselves. We understand situations better. And that's why we have to make our heart according to the level of our growth. Right? Not just our growth, but us as individuals. Right? As individuals, we have to make ourselves absolutely according to God's will. Right? We can't help it. We're born with this heart from birth. So I hope that we'll really, really be able to make ourselves as the most important thing. It is the most important thing, right? So, this one other part that I thought was really interesting too is I think it's something that a lot of people are going through now is even if you conduct yourself correctly, you can be harmed if you have conflicts with people who have changed. And that's why we always have to be conscious towards people, right? Oh, there's this one part in there that I really, we're not quite there yet. But there's a couple of different parts, right, that I thought were so interesting. Is the one I'll talk later about not trusting everyone fully, but leaving 30% behind to be cautious, right? But the message was saying that handle your heart well, and we have to live learning from God. But this is the part that I also thought was that I think a lot of people may not look at is For the things of the world, you need to learn them perfectly from the world and take appropriate action at each moment, right? So we have to learn from God, perfectly from God, and the things of the world, learn them perfectly from the world, right? And take appropriate action at each moment, right? I think that's also something that we have to recognize also, right? This part I like to hear too is that, like, even though you experience suffering of faith through trial and error, you must get up again and again. Study, make your heart well, do it again. You will achieve worldly success and also achieve the success of going to the eternal world as much as your own level, right? Get up again, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be, perfect all the time. You got to get up. And this is something I thought was so cool because I see, I talked about this in yesterday's podcast, is one of the directions Sun Team's giving is about taking care of each other. And this part came out really well, is mutually encouraging, comforting, and understanding the hearts of brothers and sisters is what God and the Holy Spirit want. And it's what I, Sun Sang, also wish for. Comforting and guiding those whose hearts have fallen into suffering is the work of salvation, right? What that is, what I talked about yesterday, guys, that is the work of salvation, to comfort, to guide, to help, to listen. It's gratifying. It's the work of salvation, right? Do this for each other. Not just head leaders and leaders should do this. Everyone should do this for each other. The Holy Spirit and God are helping you as you give words of comfort to people. And the message is like, don't tell people, come on, man, it's your responsibility. You got to do it yourself. Encourage, be with them, guide them, and then we'll be rewarded greatly by heaven. Now, if we encourage and help each other, who's going to receive strength? You are. Even though you're encouraging and helping someone else, you are receiving strength too. And what's going to be even better is, what the message said is, you receive strength and your spirit, soul, and body will change even more because your help for others will become grace. And that is how big helping lives is, guys. That is part of the work of God. Help the people whom the Holy Trinity love. Comfort those who have collapsed. Comfort those who are hurt. Comfort those who are wandering. Make it to the point where you're helping people, where God and the Holy Spirit get out of their chair and like, whoa, what's going on over there? Don't support just their bodies, support their hearts. Then they will be supported. Right? Don't be, leaders, there's another part of leaders, don't be too tough on people. And that's an absolute, I think that's something that we should know, right? Such leaders who are too tough with people, they shouldn't even be head leaders. Tough leaders will never be acceptable, right? Because through those tough leaders, people are going to resent and slander Sun's team, and they're going to leave. So we have to be those that reach that type of level, right? You got to reach that type of level. Here's an interesting part that I think all of us have experienced over the last year. Even after a person has been so good and kind, if they set their heart and mind wrong just once, they become disabled, become a vegetative person, or die like a person who fell off a cliff. When people see that, they're shocked and thinking, how could someone who was doing so well end up that way? And worry, what if that happens to me? And they begin to become scared. They're in fear and they're scared. We saw that last year. A bunch of people were like, how did they leave? How did they end up like that? Well, if they can go through that, what about us? Right? It's true. We have to understand it much, much better. One thing the message said is, one second, I got to sneeze.
I don't know if you guys heard that or not. I put it away from the mic so you guys wouldn't hear the full brunt of my sneezing. One part I like about the message is, if you want to hear the message, if you want to bear fruit
from the word, you have to polish your heart first, right? That's the first thing that has to happen, is polishing your heart. And Susie said that for 66 years, he polished his heart, received the word on top of a polished heart. And this is why he values it, right? And here's the thing. People will not keep the word unless they hear the word as precious and valuable, right? That's something that's really important we have to think about, is you'll keep the word only if you value it. You'll keep the word only if it depends on how precious you think the words are. Now, this is the part I want to talk about, right? So in Providence, one of the big things we experience is people. And we find out later they're different on the inside, even though they may be attractive on the outside. Outside is a sheep, but inside is a wolf or a goat, right? Trust people only after experiencing their heart. But even then, only 70%. Keep 30% in reserve and observe carefully. If someone deceives you about their true heart and they live filthy, obscene, abominable, you can tell by looking at the thousands of issues they have. If they do everything cleanly, their soul will reflect it even in a dream. Right? That's interesting, isn't it? So first, you want to trust people only after experiencing their heart. You know who they are, right? But even then, you keep 30% in the reserve and you keep observing, right? Because no one knows. People change. These things happen. It just happens. And I think it's something that there came a point where there were some people that we might have trusted too much, right? That we didn't leave any reserve in the tank, saying that, oh, wait, we have to trust this person 100%, right? And we need to realize this really well. Keep 30%. Even when you trust someone, you still got to keep 30% in the tank. These are wise words. It's so wise to think this way, because in the end, people change. They do. They can. People can change, right? So we have to fix our hearts. We must be absolute, right? And, if it's too hard to do it alone, do it together. Call your leaders. Be with people that you need to do it with, right? People, if you think about this, remember that story that was at the very, very end? There was someone going through a very difficult time, and then they started to believe in the slanderers, and then they decide to leave Providence, right? Because it's just too difficult for them. But when this person decided to give it another try and start to pray, their first faith caught fire and then sent Sansim a letter that they'll live their lifetime and forever in God, even though they were previously 100% determined to leave, right? And the one realization this person had was, it's a real realization. The person's realization is so deep, they said, man, how could the heart change so easily like this? They realized themselves through their experience that the people who left and the slanderers were really wrong, and even those who claimed to be leaders in Providence were really wrong, right? Because they experienced themselves how your heart can easily change. Where you're in this history, you were there for the right reasons. You're like, oh, this is the history of God. And then in an instant, difficulty comes and you start to go the other way. And something says, take action through prayer and your problems will get resolved. Right? That's a huge amen. And that's also the end of the message and the end of this this segment, right, of the Wednesday Message Word Study. But I hope it's something that you guys gained a lot from. If you have any other comments or anything else you want to add to it, go ahead, put it in the comments below too. Okay? All right. So, before we get into Until the End with Daniel Baker, let's move into the final music break of the day.
me up from falling. I feel your warm embrace, breathing life into my withering spirit, pouring out your love and grace. So I think to myself, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. You pulled me out of darkness so many thousands of times. You gave me strength and courage, everything that I need in life. Look at all the countless blessings, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand what it means to be in providence, holding God's truth in our hands, we fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. All the wondrous miracles you've shown, only here in Providence. Providence, push forward, we'll run till the end. With our solid faith, we'll repay you with all our heart, will and life. And now the seals are broken, the treasure's now revealed. You've shared his highest wisdom, valued secrets of how to live. Looking back at all the memories, I'll repay you. Ooh, oh. Even if the world forsakes you and they misunderstand, what a blessing it is that you're here, acting with God hand in hand. We've received the greatest rapture, we've gained eternal joy. This is God's final history, never will it be destroyed. Providence will shine our brightest light for your dreams. Your word fills the earth. Yeah, we'll preach, gain all that you want to achieve. Even if the world forsakes you and they don't understand, we're more than proud to be here, holding God's truth in our hands. We fulfill the greatest history, God's will and highest love. Your words, your precious providence, we'll cherish it till the end. Providence, we'll stand till the end. Providence, we'll live with our God. Providence, love God with our heart, will and life.
Okay, so let's get into today's final segment for not just today's Friday podcast, but for the entire week. And yes, we have an episode from Daniel Baker all the way over there over here in South Korea. Great news, though. You might hear it already in today's podcast, but today is his last day at work, and he'll be moving back to Incheon with his family. I'm really excited for him, and I know he has a ton of great news, and I hope that he'll be able to fulfill the things that he wants to fulfill spiritually too as he moves back in with his family and such too. All right? So without further ado, everyone, all the way over here in South Korea, this is Daniel Baker with Until the End.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Do It Until the End podcast, the podcast segment that helps you go until the end. Now, I have a juicy podcast for you guys today. I finally realized that change is necessary for growth. To gain more in life, change is necessary. Now, I've said this to you because I have officially quit my caddy job. And I can say that from this job, I gained a great amount. And I always knew that this was not going to be a easy full-time job. I know that full-time jobs are not easy in general, but this job in particular was not going to be as easy. And my ultimate goal was to save up money for my next phase in life. And so I really considered this job to be an intermediate phase, just to save up money. But it became so much more. I really learned a lot from this job. The first biggest thing I really learned was a great skill and a great way to make money in Korea. And, caddying. It's a skill and a profession. And being a professional caddy, you need to have the skill to have a high amount of multitasking ability and have the mental clarity. And it was very, very difficult, but an amazing challenge to really learn and conquer. And being able to learn and get to know so many different types of people, it gave me opportunities to serve these people, but also, there's these main types of different categories of people, and you gotta as a manager of like the game we're playing golf, you need to make sure that the different types of people receives the care that they need. And one of the biggest realizations I had was not everyone is equal or they deserve to be treated equally. Of course, I mean this in a business sense, though. And the second thing that I really learned was how to have a goal and save money towards that goal. In hindsight, it took me more time and effort to obtain that goal. And when I had that goal, I don't know why, or it really doesn't make sense right now, but it took less effort to actually act on the goals than actually, gaining and obtaining that goal in the first place. And that's, I don't know if that's only for finances, but it's a pretty interesting aspect about myself. It's a good note for me. Another amazing thing that I learned is how to play golf. Golf is an amazing sport. It's a sport that I enjoy because it needs precision. And it's a sport you do by yourself. You're not playing volleyball where it's a team sport, right? But for me, for golf, it's a one-on-one sport. It's you against you. How you use your mind, how you play, how you turn the club face a couple degrees to the left or right decides where the balls go. And for the field that I'm going into, golf is a really good way to wind down, but also make a lot of good connections. Just look at Grandpa Trump, He plays golf for a reason. He's a businessman. And I kind of unknowingly stumbled into this field, learned a really good sport, got pretty good at it, and I'm able to, use this and play golf for the rest of my life. And I, paid a couple $1,000s to get like a really good set of clubs that I'm very happy with. The fourth thing I learned was the grave dangers of the worldly temptations and how to kick them to the curb. And I'm saving this one and the stories of this for next week's podcast. And the fifth thing that I learned is how to make good friends in a new environment. How to make good, reliable friends that you could talk, you can call up, and they'll have a really good probability, if they're not doing anything like super important, to pick up and have a good conversation with them. And there are so many more things that I really learned from this experience. Now, ultimately, the end was extremely, and I mean extremely, bittersweet. And I still think about it a lot. It's still one day after, but I'm glad that I am finishing up right before winter, where it's super, super cold in Korea. But it's also saddening that I'm leaving a really good job. I had a good amount of free rounds, which costs hundreds and hundreds of dollars to play in Korea. But also the friendships and the relationships I had along the way. Leaving those things, it's pretty saddening right now. But I really realized from this experience that timing is important when it comes to change. Do I have something that I have planned in the future? Yes. Did I learn many skills that will help that plan that I have? Yes. Did I save enough money for my plan to work? Yes. Then great. It's time to move on. You don't need to linger. You don't need to think that, I need to do this more. No. You have a plan. Stick to that plan. Did the things that you do help the plan? Yes. Then great. Then move on. Now, it also is kind of cool that I quit right before the volleyball tournament. Like 2 days before the volleyball tournament. So it's good timing, so I can really focus on the tournament. And, I'm going to update you guys next week. And I'm praying to God that our team does well. And I have a lot of fun with the Trinity this tournament. Now I have a decent amount planned for the Do It Until the End podcast. And I hope that anyone listening to this podcast can listen to this podcast and really share their experiences down in the comments section below with me. And I would really like to hear what you guys are going through, the realizations you guys are having within your life. Would love to have that kind of feedback. To everyone who is going until the end, let's walk this path together. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.
And that's a big thank you and congrats to Daniel Baker for ending a stage in his life where he was working for that time as a caddy. He's now heading back. He's going to have new experiences, and he's going to have more realizations looking back at all the things that he went through while he was a caddy too. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us this week. Hope you guys had an amazing time. If you have any comments or any things you want to share, put it into the comments below. We'd love to hear from you there too. And everyone, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your Sunday service, and we'll see you guys again on Monday on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this.